I am so excited to present to you this very special interview on how to love your body with New York Times best-selling author Sonya Renee Taylor. This interview will blow your mind. We've all heard so much about loving our body, but Sonya breaks through every myth that there is, including how to break through shame, how to make sure that you're not having to buy more products and do more things to work your way to loving your body, and how to actually break through the noise and the limiting beliefs that we have in our head so we can finally feel this inherent sense of what Sonya calls radical self-love. Enjoy this interview from the kingdom. Love you. Okay, everybody. I am here with Sonya Renee Taylor. This is a very exciting moment for me because I have been taking in her work in such a deep and meaningful way that has profoundly transformed my life. And I reached out to Sonya. It was one of those people that I was like, I don't know that I'm going to be able to talk to them, and Sonya replied so quickly with just, yes, when and where, here's my availability. And so it's such a gift to have you here today, Sonya. Thank you so, so much for being here with us at the Kingdom.
It's a delight to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
So, a couple of things that I feel really excited to talk to you about as it relates to this concept of how to love your body. I wanted to have you here because one of my biggest pieces of ethos that I work on in the world is don't teach, only share what you know.
Mm-hmm.
And we're doing this topic on love, this season on love, and I really wanted to do something on how to love your body, but I've only come a certain distance in this loving your body conversation, and I felt like I need somebody else to come in here to really help us see what it means to love your body. And you have this story metaphor that you use that I find so powerful about the acorn. It really impacted me when I heard you talk about it and read it. So I'd be curious if you'd be okay with starting with that and showing us how that frames in with a new idea of loving your body.
Yeah, sure. I like to always just be like, it's not my metaphor, y'all. I didn't make it up. It's Marianne Williams.
Yeah, and we love Marianne's been here with us too, so we love her
Marianne.
here.
So yeah, I never want to pretend like it was mine. But I thought that when I heard her say it, and she wasn't talking about the body, but when she said it, for me, it encapsulated what it is that I believe when I'm talking about this idea of radical self-love. Is, she describes in it, she says that, an acorn doesn't have to try to become an oak tree. It doesn't have to effort towards becoming an oak tree. Everything that it needs in order to grow into the highest expression of itself is already encoded inside of it. And so the question then becomes, well, is the acorn in the right conditions such that that which is inside of it can be activated such that it can be its highest expression of itself? And for me, that is what radical self-love is, which is that we are imbued with everything that it is we need to manifest the highest expressions of ourselves, that we arrived here as fully embodied vessels of love. That's how we showed up to the planet. And the only way in which we could be disconnected from that is such that something about the conditions has made it such that that fullest expression of ourselves, we don't feel it. We can't tap into it, right? And so that made me say, well, then it must not be us. It must not be the vessel that's the problem. It must be the conditions that's the problem. And if it's the conditions that's the problem, then can we start talking about what those conditions are so that we can separate the idea that there's something wrong with us and put the onus on the things that need to be changed back to where they belong, which are the conditions that are hampering our ability to become the fullest expressions of ourselves.
See, I have little goosebumps. You probably can't see them because I got the little skin smoother on, but got little goosebumps because this is so big, because we hear about this concept of loving your body, of like this thing that we have to try to do, this thing that we have to try to build or become. And you're saying that's not the case. So can you just give me a distinction? We're going to get into these conditions, a distinction between like this kind of self-love, love your body movement and what you're calling radical self-love.
Yeah, so I think, like people, when I started doing this work 13 years ago, it was me and like one other hit on the Instagram, on the internet about radical stuff. And so I was always clear what I was talking about. I was talking about how is it that we become aware of and connect to a way of being in ourselves that, one, I literally use the definitions of the word radical, that is the origin of a thing, right? So I'm proposing that this sense of love that I'm talking about is the origin of us. It's how we started, that it's inherent. Again, we don't have to figure out how to get it. It's already there. Radical as in thoroughgoing or extreme. I'm talking about a big, wild, unruly, undisciplined, undefiant love, and unapologetic love, right? The kind of love that needs to be thoroughgoing and extreme because we live in thoroughgoing and extreme circumstances that tell us we should not love ourselves. We live in thoroughgoing and extreme circumstances that target our bodies as deficient, as dangerous, um, as something aberrant, right? And so we need something that counters that. And I'm talking radical as in proposing drastic political, economic, and social transformation. That's the other definition of radical. That, and to me, is one of the most important ones because it gets to, oh, there are conditions that are hampering that acorn, and those conditions need to be changed. And so when I hear other people talking about self-love or talking about body positivity and these sort of other words that folks use, first and foremost, I think the most significant difference to me is that they're talking about a thing that is highly individualistic and highly apolitical, right? It's like, it's how I feel about myself, right? And I'm like, how you feel about yourself doesn't exist in a vacuum. It is not some solitary experience that you're just having. That how you feel about yourself is shaped by a social world and shaped by a cultural world and a familial world and a political world and an economic world. And how you feel about yourself is also shaped and informed about how you feel about other people's bodies. And I'm interested in a conversation that holds all those pieces such that we might get to the truth of our actual relationship, which again, I believe is love. But we can't get there if we're going to sit it on top of foundation of the same illusions that built the world that we need to dismantle anyway. And so I'm talking about something that is transformative, and I'm talking about something that isn't just about the body. The body is a manifestation of something far deeper, far more profound, something far more intangible than these, my ex used to call them fleshy thought tubes. Like, you're onto something. Just something far more profound than these fleshy thought tubes could actually encapsulate, right, in its fullness. And so the body is part of an entire system that I believe is simply trying to reconcile us to love, right?
Yeah.
And the body is the vessel by which we get to take the journey to reconciling to love.
See, so this was like the main thing that really shifted things for me in reading your work is understanding. So I'm just guiding people through this again, like in the way that I got this in my body was I am the acorn and I don't need any instruction to become the oak tree. I don't need to add anything. I don't need to learn anything. This is inherent in me. And so radical self-love for me, for my body, for me to become the highest expression of myself is natural. What is not natural is all the shit, is all the conditions, is all the things from society, from our trauma, from our programming, from politics, from everything that we then put those glasses on and start seeing the world through those glasses, not nice glasses like you got on right now, some other kind of glasses, right? And so this is the piece. When we talk about those conditions, in a lot of your work, I hear you talking about this imagination that we are imagining through. That's not really our own imagination, or these thoughts that we're having that we think are our thoughts, but they're not actually our thoughts. And so can you help me understand that? Because once I got that, I was like, oh my gosh, all these thoughts that I teach meditation. I know I'm not my thoughts, but
Right.
somehow I thought those thoughts were my thoughts.
But
And
right. You're like, I'm not my thoughts, but those thoughts are mine. Right.
right, right, right,
And
right, right.
and it's actually not only are you not your thoughts, but those thoughts aren't yours. Right. That we are, and I think this is the thing that's really difficult for people because so much of our striving, so much of our struggling is about having a sense of control. And
Yeah.
so the idea that like our thoughts aren't our own is like a level of we're not in control that I think is really unnerving for folks. But I also think is profoundly liberatory once we actually let it settle in
For
us.
people who are hearing this for the first time, your thoughts are not your own. I think people hear you are not your thoughts in a meditative context, but like your
Yeah.
thoughts are not your own. Whose are they? Where are they coming from, Sonya?
We're Swiffer sweepers. We run a Swiffer sweeper across the floor. It's gonna pick up what's on the floor. Like we are, if we want to be in a sort of more metaphysical conversation about it, all of us are simply um, inside of what we call the collective unconscious, right? Or the collective consciousness that we move through unconsciously, right? We are all inside of these ideas and these beliefs and these narratives, and we didn't create them. No one ever woke up one day and was like, thinness is the best. I created that thought, right? Like I created that thought, and that's why I moved that way. That's not how that thought came into being. We know that's not how that thought came into being because you got it from someplace. And part of the problem is that we don't interrogate where the message came from. We think the thought and we just stop there, right? And part of the invitation, I think, of the work around radical self-love is, can I get curious about where the thought came from? Because when we follow the thread back, we realize that that thought is tied into systems, most often systems related to power and money.
Yes.
Systems related to capitalism, systems related to patriarchy, systems related to how domination moves in our societies. That's generally where these thoughts that put us in an adversarial relationship with our bodies, they start there. And so if you can get like to the point, and this is the distinction that I think helps people sometimes is from a radical self-love standpoint, any thought that tells me that I am somehow unworthy, unlovable, not enough can't be my original thought. Because it's
Right.
the antithesis. It would be like an acorn being like, nope, I'm supposed to be a dogwood tree.
Right.
Can't be original because everything that's encoded inside of an acorn is to become an oak tree.
Right.
So if everything in me is encoded to be a manifestation of love, then all thoughts that are the contrary of that can't be from me.
Right. And like the reason that has to be true is because the same intelligence, God being universe spirit,
That
that
made the acorn,
made
made
you.
us, made
Yes.
us.
With
We
everything
can't
in
be the
you.
faulty thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
So
The
let me
same
trace
wisdom.
one thing, Sonya. Let me trace one thing to make this so clear for people. So if I wake up and I have the thought, or if I'm having the thought in my life, I need to be skinnier. I need to
Yeah.
lose weight.
Mm-hmm.
What we're going to, right? There's one aspect that if it's something that's actually having to do with your health, right? That's one whole element. But if we're really going to it, and most people are like, I just need to be skinnier. It's summer and I need to be skinnier. We trace this back and we look at what collective unconscious has sold us this lie that says that you're skinnier, you're more beautiful. You're skinnier, you're more attractive. You're skinnier, you're more desirable. More people will want you. Like that is none of that actually comes from you. That comes from
Exactly.
media, from politics, from companies trying to make money on you losing weight and buying their stuff. So that's what you're saying. It's their thoughts that we're thinking in our heads
It
and
is
thinking
their
they're our
thoughts.
own, right?
Exactly. And that those things that they've attached it to, desirable, more beautiful, people will want me. What does that all mean at the end? Like when you distill that down to its simplest form, it means, oh, I'm lovable.
Yeah.
All of that is trying to get you to figure out how to externalize a thing that is internal, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that will make me lovable. Except what I'm proposing to you is that you are inherently lovable, that love is the condition of your entire nature, which means you can't be separated from it. So as soon as someone's trying to sell you a way to get it, you know they're lying.
As soon as someone is trying to sell you a way to get it, you know they're lying because the love
You
was
can't
already
sell
there.
it. It's already there. You
Yeah.
can't sell me something I already have. Why would I need it?
Right. Right. And you actually, and of all the things in the world to try to buy, that's the one we know you can't buy. How many things have we bought that thought it was going to give us something internal, make us love something, and it doesn't work? Right.
And still buying more things, still trying to figure it out through that method, which is why I say there's something wrong with that method. And what does it look like if we interrupt that story, that the thing we're searching for can be found outside of us, and actually return to what is the truth in me that I'm seeking to excavate, and what are the things that have built up around it that make it difficult to get to?
Yes. Yes. Okay. So Sonya, there is this element has been really challenging for me, and this part that I'm going to share with you, and I think people will really resonate with this. So I read your book, I do the practices, I'm in my work, I understand that I am the acorn, right?
Right.
Then I step into the world, right? Then I go to this recently just came up for me. I get invited to my first party at the beach with a whole bunch of gay guys in Los Angeles who
Right.
are just right?
Mm-hmm.
And the mirage comes
Yeah.
back. And it
Mm-hmm.
happens to anybody. They have to go to a reunion. They have to go to a wedding. They go to they're going to see people in their family or whatever. And you've done these practices. And then how do we stay with it when you step back into a world that doesn't have these tools? Like, what is that? You know?
Right. And so, I mean, one of the things that I say in my work, in the workbook, Your Body's Not an Apology workbook, in there I give practices, 10 tools to radical self-love. Here are the things we need to practice. And I tell people all the time, tools 9 and 10 are the most important. And if you don't do them, it's going to be a rough journey forever. And tool number 9 is you have to be in community. If, again, the story of individualism, part of
Mm,
that story of external, right? Is the external world is going to give you something, right? I can figure it all by myself, right? Like that's capitalism is like, nope, I did it all by myself and you reward me all by myself, right?
yeah.
And then when I feel terrible, it's all by myself and it's all my fault, right? Like all of it just takes you back to this I story. And what I offer is that it is impossible in a world of constant, like a constant barrage of messages of not enoughness, a constant barrage of messages of you're deficient in this way or that way, or you're just not going to ever be good enough. It's impossible against those odds to try to do this work by yourself. And part of the reason it's impossible is because the work isn't supposed to be by yourself. We are
Mhm.
inherently interdependent beings. And so
Yeah.
you have to build a community of people who are moving like you're moving. Part of it, I became vegan a year ago, and it talk about like, oh, I'm around people who live in real different than I.
Yeah.
I my family's like, I'm sorry, you're a vegan. Please pass the chicken wings. And this is
Right.
at every food function, right? They like, oh, there's a salad bag in the fridge, Sonya, have at it, right? And
Right.
so, um, and it's in those moments where I'm like, oh, Jesus, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. And what I realize is, right, if I haven't built a community around myself that affirms the way it is that I'm moving now, then I will absolutely be pulled into the undertow of a former way of thinking, right?
Mm,
And so I have to surround myself with people and things and activities and ideas that reminded me. One of the things that is helpful for me is like, oh, like I have a check-in before I do a thing that I know is going to put me in a world that is, counter to the way I'm trying to move now. I have a check-in with someone who is in my community of practice now, before and after. I book in those things, right?
Ah,
So that I'm not going to dive in with no life raft, with no
yeah.
touchstone to what it is that actually supports me. And so I think that's just one small way to do it, one small practice.
If I can just jump in, it's just like, first of all, we know this, and I don't know why I've never thought about it until I read your book in terms of body, because we are sold this lie that we're just supposed to love ourselves by ourselves and figure it out by ourselves. But we know in any other way, like anyone who's tried to, and everyone here has done it, tried to elevate their vibration or increase their spiritual, you've had to let some people go and
And
get
people got to
in different,
go,
of course.
got to change.
You
And
can't
that is
elevate your vibe with
absolutely
a
the
bunch of
same.
toxic people around you. So why would you be able to love your body or have radical self-love in this new way, surrounded by a bunch of people who don't understand?
I'm not in
Okay.
alignment with that, who don't understand that.
So
Exactly.
what's the second? You said 9 and 10 are the two ones that we got
9
to
and
do.
10.
Yeah.
And 10 is give yourself some grace. There is another one of the aspects, right? Toxic aspects of the culture that we have been indoctrinated into. One is individualism, and the second is perfectionism, right? And then we've taken that idea of perfectionism and even placed it inside of the realm of self-love. Oh my gosh, I have to do this perfectly. I have to figure out how to, like one of my workshop participants once called it meta shame. It's like, oh, now I have shame for having body shame.
Right. Right.
Like that's such an unsustainable way to exist in the world. And what I offer inside of this idea of give yourself some grace is, again, we are inside of a world with a very specific indoctrination that it is frying and constantly reifying in us. It is impossible to walk through every single day feeling like, some radiant beam of radical self-love. That's an unrealistic expectation. And I practice for myself, like I said, I have 13 years spending nothing but time working on this idea of radical self-love. And there are days that I don't feel very loving toward my body. And on those days, I practice and I love the Sonya that doesn't love her body until Sonya loves her body again. I love you, Sonya, who thinks you're not enough today. I love you, Sonya, who is displeased with your cellulite. I love you, imperfect Sonya, because the more that I can practice loving the Sonya on her journey, as opposed to the Sonya who's arrived at a destination, the more I am able to sustain my connection to that love over time, no matter the conditions.
This is really important because as we're on our paths to spiritual growth, I feel like so many of us, we feel like we've done all this work on ourselves, and then we shame ourselves when we feel like we've quote unquote taken a step back.
Yes.
We learn
exactly.
so much in that piece, right? Of how to love ourselves through every phase of the journey. I want to ask you another question, Sonya. I will tell you the part of this that felt like it really got me in your work, in listening to you talk about this work that I really had to own. And this, what you're doing, because this part of this is my whole, is some big shadow work. This is what we're doing here is shadow work. And
Absolutely.
I love some shadow work here. We do it here. And so the piece of it that was so big for me is understanding that a big part of the reason of why I sometimes don't want to put down the old story, the old imagination, is because I lose something when I do.
Absolutely.
And I want you to speak about this because when you talked about this, I said, oh goodness, this is really what it is. This is really why I keep working my body out in a way that is causing me pain, why I keep doing X, Y, Z. So can you speak about what we lose when we go on this journey and what we gain?
Absolutely. Yes. Well, we're going to lose what the external world promised us. Now, the truth of the matter is we weren't never going to have it to begin with. And I think
Yes.
that's the part that we actually have to grapple with, right? But we lose the illusion that one day we will finally attain the thing, right? Whether that's enough wealth to feel worthy, or enough desirability to feel worthy, or enough connections and popularity, to whatever that is that we think is going to finally make us enough, we're going to lose that. And we're going to lose the capital that this world tosses at us as carrots that keep us on the hamster wheel, right? Like you're like, because life does reward you for trying to play the game, right?
Yeah.
Like you will ascend to certain levels and you will get certain trappings. Those things will happen. But what you'll always notice is inside you'll still feel completely and totally empty. You'll still feel utterly disconnected from any sense of truth or self. I say all the time, we know this to be true because Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos are still trying to make more money.
Right.
They done made as much money as they could spend all their grandkids and their great great grandkids for eons and eons, and they still want more because there's never going to be enough to fill that hole. And so, yes, you got to give up the illusion that one day that thing outside you is going to fill the hole. You
Yeah.
have to relinquish that, and you'll have to relinquish the petty pieces of power and domination that you are given in exchange for continuing to trade your humanity for that illusion.
And this is when I really had to own this. It said, okay, Justin, if you stop putting your body through this and you stop looking the way that the system has told you that you should look to be whatever, you might lose some power. You
Yeah.
might lose walking into a room and getting benefits just because you look a certain way. And people don't want to
Yeah.
talk about this. You
They
might
don't.
lose being in a space and being one of the more attractive or skinny or whatever people in the space. And then you lose the automatic attention that makes you feel
Yeah.
love. But guess what? Inside of all those spaces, this is where people have to get real with what you just said. When I go in those spaces, and even if I do feel that attention and power and love, I still feel empty inside.
You still feel empty.
It's
It still
never
didn't
enough.
give you this. It's never enough. And not only is it not, this is the thing I want people to pair together, right? If you need an internal marker, it's you still feel empty. If you need an external marker, power at whose expense, right? And so you're inside of a system that's like, not only do you get to keep harming yourself and depleting yourself, you also get to keep harming and depleting other people. And
Yes.
that's the loop that is asking us to stay in. And when we step off of that, yes, we lose power inside of that system. I want to go back to what you said before about that system is a certain set of imaginations.
Yes.
Yes, you will lose power inside of the imagination of white supremacist, capitalist, hetero, ableist, fat phobic patriarchy. Yep, you certainly will. Guess what? That system is diabolical, deadly, violent, and the scourge of all the things it is that we are navigating in the world right now. And so, yes, I don't want to live in that imagination. And the truth of the matter is, every time I have relinquished power in that space, I have gained power in my own beingness, and it creates a whole new possible world. I live differently today because I move differently outside of that system. And there's nothing that that system offered me that I don't have access to in a way that allows me to still have my humanity intact through authentic, real connections with people who actually value and love me, and the ability to create the kind of world I desire all of us to live in, not
Mm.
just my opportunity to cash into the old one.
And that is the
If you get it.
freedom. That is freedom.
That's
That's
free.
where,
That's freedom.
yes, instead of thinking, I'm going to have freedom once I look like this, once I'm like this, and then you get a little bite of it. And that's what the system does. Oh, look, you got some attention. Gone.
Yeah,
More.
no, now you're in
More.
jail.
More.
Now you're in jail to that thing. Now you are incarcerated by that thing. Freedom is the ability to be 100% in integrity with yourself.
Mm,
That is freedom.
mm. Now, Sonya, I want to ask you, because we have people in this community who are committed deeply to creating a world where everyone can be free, committed to creating a world where we can come together across divides and raise each other up.
Yeah.
If I continue to hate on my body, if I continue to live in this system, how is this affecting other people? Because I know it can't just be about me.
Absolutely not. Well, it goes back to what you just said about this idea of like, if I, when I walk into the space, if I'm the thinnest, if I'm the most attractive, if I'm the most desirable, if I have the most money, right? All of that is, how do I become more important than the other people here? Right? It's how do I, the way I talk about it is that we exist in a world that has a ladder of bodily hierarchy,
A
right?
ladder.
We have
Okay.
a ladder, right? Which means wherever you are on that ladder, based off of, your physical presentation, based off of your socioeconomic status, your education, all these things go into that ladder. And wherever you are on that ladder, there are people who are above you and there are people who are below you. And your attempt to secure your station in that ladder, or your attempt to ascend that ladder, demands that there remain people below you. It demands that there be people who get less than you have, that are seen less than you are, who are desired less than you are, who are cared for less than you are, who ultimately have less resource and protection and safety than you do. Because those are the things that we get people higher up on the ladder, right? We give people higher up on the ladder more resource. We give them more safety. We give them more protection. We give them more care, right? And the people lower the ladder get less of all those things. And so every time you try to ascend that ladder, you reaffirm that there's an entire selection of humans that should have and will have less safety, care, protection, resource, and love than you have.
Mm. And so every time that I continue to play that game, I am basically stepping on somebody who is below me and saying,
millions of people, millions
millions,
of people,
and saying, stay where
millions of
you
people.
are and let me
Stay
stand
where
on you
you
so
are
I can be
and let me
better.
stand on your head. Let me stand on your head so I can.
Sonya, I can't thank you enough for your work. I mean, it really is the best thing that I have ever heard and read. And I've been working this story. I've been working this for my entire life. I've been working this for as far back as I have a memory. I'll never forget. I'll just tell you, I could cry. Like your work, and you have given me a pathway to freedom in a way that I've never experienced. And so I just want to thank you, because for me, this started, I remember I was in 6th grade and me and a bunch of friends went to take this physical education class at a community college that was about weightlifting. And I'm the young, kind of scrawny, gay, but in the closet, Black boy at school. And I'm with all these straight boys who have been athletes. And I just remember being in that space, and all the girls, at the point when I cared about that, but like all the girls and all the people were just all about these guys. And I remember thinking, it was the first time I thought, what is it about me? Why are they not looking at me, but they're looking at them? And I saw when they would take their shirts off after this class, oh, their bodies are like that. And so they're more desirable, they're more powerful. And from 6th grade until now, I've been trying to catch up to those boys.
Yeah.
But guess what? I'm the acorn that's not supposed to be like those boys. My body breaks down every time I even try. And so this made me see the status, the power, the whole frame that has been having me living inside of a system that, again, was never mine to begin with in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah. An illusion, right? An illusion that we all got sold. And, my hope is always just that I be a contribution to how we get out of the illusion back into our true selves. That's all.
Yes. I would love it if you could close us out with maybe a little practice, because we talked about being inside of this old imagination. And I think a part of what people will be hoping for is like a felt experience of what it feels like to be in the real imagination, the right imagination, you know, a new imagination. Could you guide us through just a short little something to help get us into that space so we can start to create and live from there?
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm like, what's one that doesn't get us, you know, for me, what I've realized is just it's an onion layer, but that's okay, actually. And so
That's
I think
fine. Yeah.
what I would say is the first thing is like to allow ourselves to be like, all right, what's the biggest thing that I fear in this journey? Right? What's the thing that feels the most terrifying to me, right? About moving toward my own radical self-love. Right?
For me, it's losing love from other people.
Mm,
That's for me.
got it. And then, so once we identify that, then the next activity is, can I welcome the fear of losing love?
Mhm.
Can I let that in? Can I let in the fear of losing love?
Or whatever it is for the people
Or
listening.
whatever it is, whatever that fear is that you named, can you just say, I welcome you here, right? And let that be. Mm. And then ask that fear once you really have a felt sense of it, a felt sense like, oh, I feel this in my, like, where do you feel that fear when you think about it? Where in your body do you feel that fear?
It's in my chest for me. It's just there. My
Chest.
heart starts
Right.
beating fast. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And so you're like, all right, that's in my chest. Mm. And then you just ask it, what do you want me to know?
Mhm. It says that you're loved anyways, baby.
Right. But here's the thing that comes up for me all the time is when that fear comes up, the first thing to do is welcome it because it has information for you. But we spend so much time being like, must keep the fear out, must go do the thing. That's how we keep the fear out. Where I push it away by going to do the thing that I think externally is going to give it to me. The invitation is to welcome it because it has a message for you. And it's always a message that reminds you of that authentic, true experience of radical self love. And so when you feel that fear of this journey come up, stop and invite it in. It has something to tell you, and it's going to be sweet, it's going to be loving, and it's going to be the next step to how you really reclaim your own seated, empowered place of radical self love.
Mm. Sonya, thank you. I mean, this is so powerful because what we know often is when we're faced with fear, it's because we're expanding beyond our comfort zone. And in this space, that's exactly where we want to get is into a new
Yeah,
space beyond our comfort zone.
absolutely.
Sonya, thank you so much. I am so thankful. I'm so grateful. This is going to help so many people. As we close, is there anything that you would like to share and just like any parting closing words with folks?
I mean, one, just thank you so much for inviting me. I appreciate it. Folks often ask me, like, how can they do this? Well, people ask me a lot about how to do this work with kids. And so I have a new book coming out in October that you can pre-order right now called The Book of Radical Answers, Real Questions from Real Kids Just Like You. And it is for ages 10 to 14, and kids around the world wrote in questions about how they are moving through these ideas of body identity, politics, gender, religion, all of these things. And how do they do that from a radical self-love standpoint? And I'm 100% certain that this is for kids and it's for the kids inside of us. And so I really invite folks to go pre-order Book of Radical Answers, and you can find the link for that on my Instagram page, Sonya
We're going to
Renee
put it here
Taylor.
too. Yeah.
Okay, and it'll also be there any place books are sold. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really powerful, Sonya, that you're doing this work for kids because if I had this when I was younger,
Right. Right.
with
I'm
the
hoping
brain.
that I'm hoping we can give folks some years of their lives back.
Yeah, save a lot of money on therapy. Well, everybody, so everybody, please show your love to Sonya in the chat, in the comments, wherever it is that you're watching this. Sonya, we thank you, we honor you, we love you, we rise together, and I'm just so grateful for you. Thank you.
It's so mutual. Thank you.